Welcome, and thank you for tuning into this third video of a three-part series, motivational series titled, What is Holding You Back? Whatever your goal is, whatever your dream is, you've got to have a roadmap. If you don't have a roadmap, any roadmap will get you there. I've listened and watched and bought tapes from motivational speakers and success speakers for the last decade. One of my favorite success speakers has always been Brian Tracy. When I look at the success roadmaps that all these authors and speakers talk about and show us, they all begin with a plan. And that's what we talked about in video number 1, was our plan and how we're going to set it up. A good plan, if you'll recall, has to have definite goals. Personal goals. Do you want to get married? Do you want to lose 30 pounds? Whatever it is, it's got to be definite, whatever those goals are. Professional, a raise, a promotion, a house, a boat, a car, whatever it is, it's got to be definite. These goals have to be definite so we can put them in our mind. And when our mind can see it, it's amazing how much better our success rate is at achieving these goals. So your goals have got to be definite. Same thing with the time period. You've got to have a definite time period. I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to do that in 24 months. I want to make $1 million. I want to do that in 60 months, 5 years, whatever it is. But if you just say someday, someday turns into never. I've seen it happen many, many times. Next, how? Determine how you want to lose weight. There's plenty of exercise programs out there. Pick one. How you want to make money or advance in your career. There are many ways to do that. Pick your how, whatever it is. Pick your how and drive it until it ends, and it will end at some point. It's like a racehorse. Get off that racehorse and get on another one. Pick another how. The possibilities are endless. So that's our plan. That's how we set up our plan. Many people get to this point and nothing happens. Something is holding them back. And we talked about that. 3 things typically hold people back. Number 1, no desire. No desire, no results. Now, if you've completed a plan, to me, at least from what I've seen, is you do have the desire. There may be something else holding you back. But if you've gone that far and you've completed a plan, you have the desire. But if you don't, if you won't get up off that couch, no desire, no results. The next one is physical limitations. I have one of these myself. We just can't get through these limitations. Sometimes we have to work around them. I have terrible eyesight. It's very poor. I can't drive without glasses or contacts. I can't see across the street without glasses or contacts. It reminds me of the Serenity Prayer, which I'm very familiar with. It goes like this: Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. When it got to a point in high school football that I could no longer see the ball in the stadium lights, I was blinded. There were just a bunch of stars. My football career was over. Physical limitations are like this. I had to figure something else to do. And finally, fear. This is the one thing that is holding most people back. My favorite acronym for fear is future events appearing real. We're not afraid of the past unless it affects the future. We're not afraid of now. We're too busy doing it right now. We can't have our little rat brains generating these boogeymen and these fears in our mind when we're busy doing something else. Fear is fear of the future. Now, realizing this, and that these fears are boogeymen of the mind and can vanish in an instant. The famous personal coach Tony Robbins calls this changing state. Realizing all this, though, and even having these tools, sometimes some of these irrational fears, and there are only 2 real fears, right? The fear of falling, which I call the fear of hitting the ground, but the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Only of the top 10 fears, we talked about those earlier, Of those top 10 fears, only 2 of them are natural. The rest of them are irrational. And so knowing all these things, tips and tricks, etc., still we can't get past some of these irrational fears. All the logic, the trite quotations, and the tips and tricks that we have at our disposal won't help us get over some of these fears. They are just that stubborn. So, a lot of people do get through these fears. How do they do that? I'll tell you a story of my own. My father died here a couple of years ago. Now, he was the last one of my immediate family. My mother had died over a decade ago. My grandparents had long since passed away as well. I still do have a spouse, a brother. We're not very close. We weren't very close at the time. We are now. I felt very, very alone. Like I indicated, none of the tips and tricks and trite quotations and whatever, listening to tapes, going to speeches, etc. None of that would really worked to really get me out of the funk. I was dealing with the depression, the loneliness. I was also dealing with a very grave physical illness. And I'm in recovery from that physical illness now. So how did I do it? How did I get through it? Even knowing everything that I knew about fear, even knowing all the motivational tips that I've gone over. Well, if we look out there at the rest of the world, people have gone through things much, much worse than what I just described to you. But some of the things that we look at, or some of the things that we try to determine that help us through it, when all else fails, when it gets down to the root cause, the root reason of why we get through things or why we don't get through things, is the root cause of our confidence is our why. I want to ask you, is your why for doing things? Is your why for losing weight? Is your why for making money? Whatever it is that you want. Is your why big enough to overcome the problems that you're facing right now? A man named Viktor Frankl wrote a book, A Man's Search for Meaning. And in it, he wrote these words. He said that with a big enough why, almost any how is endurable. We can endure almost any how. All things being equal, he and a number of his other comrades did survive the Nazi concentration camps. But he wrote in his book that it was his why for surviving that kept him and his comrades alive. It is your why that's going to determine your success or failure. When life throws its tough lessons at us, all these other sayings and quotations, they're not going to get us through it. When we have to white knuckle it through a situation, and that is literally holding on so tightly that your knuckles turn white and pushing through anyway, it's going to be your why you're doing things at the core that's going to move you forward. So let's take a look at this why. There are 3 very, very common whys that I've discovered in my life, and I've heard about, read about, etc. One of the whys that I've heard about is, glory and self-aggrandizement. Hey, look at me. Now, I had this one, and it's a pretty selfish why. How about another why? Retribution. Getting someone back for what they did. Righteous, self-righteous indignation. I'll get you. Hate. Well, and this is one of my favorite sayings, is that hate is like poisoning yourself, hoping the other person dies. Which doesn't happen that way. Hate only poisons the hater. And then the third one, how about I'll show you, proving to yourself, proving to the world that you're worthy. Well, this only goes so far. What happens when you've shown everyone else up? The 3 whys that I just mentioned are very common, but they only get you so far. And when life gets tough, they're probably not going to pull you through it. There are only 2 whys, 2 reasons that I have found to be sufficient when all of our logical reasoning has come to an end. And these whys are love and faith. Who you love is your business, and what your faith is also is your own business. But there are no stronger whys than love and faith that I'm aware of. Let's examine our original goals, our personal goals, our professional goals that we had throughout this in light of these two whys as we wrap all this up. Who are you losing 30 pounds for? Is the love in your heart big enough to keep you away from the fridge when the doctor tells you if you keep eating, your diabetes will get worse, you'll have to go on a pump? If you keep eating, cholesterol in your heart will kill you, heart attack will kill you. If you keep eating, your blood pressure will go haywire. Is the love of your children, is the love of your spouse, is that enough? That's the why when all of those other tips and tricks and reasonings don't work. That's the why that's going to determine whether or not you lose that 30 pounds. Professionally, $1 million. Will making $1 million make you happy? It's very hard to make $1 million if you start with nothing. If it's just to make yourself happy and glory and self-aggrandizement, which I had for a long, long time, it's not going to work. It might work for you. The law of averages say that it will at some point. But for me, at least, that was a very hollow and meaningless why to rely upon to push myself through the difficulties of achieving that amount of money. I sat back and I looked at it. What does my faith say about $1 million and the money and the power that it brings? Will I use it for good, or will I use it for self-glory? When I was going after it for self-glory, hey, look at me, I'll get you, or I'll prove you. When things got tough, it just wasn't enough to keep me going. But if I look at my faith, what can I do with that money? What can I do for other people? What can I do for my family, the people that I love? Can I do good with that money? Does my faith tell me that I'm worthy of that money? Those are the things, love and faith. So all I would say is, Tony Robbins says, when you're stuck, pick a better question. Pick a bigger problem to solve. And I say, when you're having troubles getting through that, pick a better why. Make it a better why. Base it on love and faith and make it count. Here's to your success, and thank you for watching.